because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncers' guilt rings.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast in New York at the weigh-in for Theo Taylor with the main man, the Jewish muscle, Evan Korn.
That's what the best intro I've ever gotten. Thank you, Colin.
Evan, I actually just want to touch on this with you first of all. Massive fight week for Top Rank. Yeah. Huge fight. Where does the loser in this fight go? I know it's a crazy question to come in with at the start, but where does the loser go in a massive fight like this?
I mean, I think in any fight, it depends how you lose, right? If it's a fight of the year, a close fight, then the loser doesn't really take too much of a step back. If one guy loses decisively, obviously it'd be a major setback for either guy. And as both have been alluded to, Josh Taylor hasn't been vintage Josh Taylor in over 2 years when he fought Osier Ramirez, and Teo hasn't been vintage Teo in almost 3 years when he beat Lomachenko. So it's a fascinating matchup, and you can't really answer that question until you see how the fight plays out in the ring.
When I say something about Teofimo's age, is it a loss more detrimental in terms of Josh Taylor's career? Because Teofimo is still only 25 and has plenty of years left, whereas Josh is towards the tail end of his career now.
Well, you got to remember Josh is 32 and he's had 19 professional fights. So not a guy who's had a ton of professional wear and tear on him. Obviously he's coming off. The last few years he hasn't really been active. Obviously, with COVID, sort of mucking up the works for everybody, and then the Catterall fight, and then that got postponed, and now he's coming off a layoff. So he's been inactive. So there's not a lot of physical wear and tear on Josh Taylor. So again, depends what happens in the ring. If Josh were to lose, he's 32. There's still a lot of time for him to climb back up to the top, whether it's at 140 or welterweight.
I want to talk about your career and your progression, because you've started out in media relations with Top Rank. You've worked your way to the point now where you've joined under the guidance of Brad Goodman, Bruce Trampler, the matchmaking side. How is that kind of transition for you, and how has that came about?
Listen, it's a learning experience. At this point, I'm just there to learn under the best guys who've ever done it, which are Brad and Bruce. So kind of dipping my toe in that water with some 4 and 6 rounders mostly. Still doing a lot of the media relations, which I love, which is a passion of mine, and so I'm just fortunate that Top Rank is giving me the opportunity to do both roles. And obviously, we brought on Gabe Rivas, who used to be with Golden Boy, to help out in the media relations and PR stuff. He's been an incredible addition. So, yeah, I'm just fortunate to be in the position I'm in and to learn under the best guys who've ever done it, which is, as I said, Brad Goodman and Bruce Trampler.
How, in terms of that position, did it come about that you end up in this matchmaking role? Is it something that you're passionate about first and foremost?
It wasn't something that not something like when I joined the company that I was aiming for, but it was just an opportunity that was presented, and like I think a lot of people, you want to advance your career and try different things, and and I've always sort of picked Brad and Bruce's brain over the years, and so it's just something that I kind of feel like happened organically. And it's been exciting for sure.
Have you matched any on this card?
A lot of this is a collaborative effort. So, I think I helped with the Damian Naiba fight, our Polish heavyweight. He's fighting a tough guy in Helaman Olgin, who gave Otto Wallin 8 tough rounds a few months back. So we feel like that'll be a good test for Damian Naiba, who's already established himself as one of the biggest ticket sellers in the New York, New Jersey area. He's been on the last 2 he's been on Shakur Stevenson's last card, I believe, and he's fought at the Garden before, and he sells a massive amount of tickets. So we're excited for him to potentially become the next Andrew Golota, in terms of filling arenas and selling tickets. And if he gets to a point where he's a contender or challenging for a title, just like you saw with Adam Kovnowski in Brooklyn, I think you're going to see the same thing with Damian Naiba.
Last one from me. You're fresh in the game of matchmaking, but I think it's important to ask you this. What makes a good matchmaker? What makes a new style matchmaker away from all these Hall of Fame guys that you're working with? What can you bring differently to the table?
It's not about bringing anything different. I mean, you don't want to totally rewrite the playbook. When you match, Brad and Bruce have said this time and again, so I'm just going to echo their thoughts here. When you match for a company like Top Rank, it's twofold. Obviously, you want to give the fans great fights, and you want to give the fighters you have under contract good fights and fights that they can win, but fights in which they'll also learn and develop. So that's really the aim. You want to give the fans watching great fights, because when you have 7, 8, 9, 10 fights on a card, and the cards lasting 4, 5, 6 hours, you got to keep the audience's attention. So again, you want to give them good fights, but when you have young fighters under contract, it's your job to put them in the best possible position to develop into a championship level fighter. At some point with these young fighters, you got to throw them in the deep end, so to speak, and see what they have. Sometimes you can't really see what a guy has until he's truly challenged. And so, yeah, that's really the goal.
Well, Evan, I really enjoyed picking your brains. I think the fans enjoy these type of interviews where it's a bit different. Really appreciate the corner man, Evan Korn, future ballot Hall of Famer.
Like, stop with the future Hall of Famer shit. But I appreciate the interview, and you ran through the gamut of my nicknames. So thank you,
Evan. Appreciate it.
always.
Because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,